And that thing came true, but once it came true, the fact is the next day this tragedy has struck, which is what is tragic. There are no words that can describe this tragedy. Most of these people have been youngsters who, of course, crowded there to try and get a glimpse of their stars and managed to win the trophy. But this is what has happened in the chaos.
What's more even annoying, Saleh, is that the government of that state had really foreseen such a tragedy, because they did say that they do not want to have parades being organized in the state, because they did anticipate a huge crowd turning out to celebrate with the team, the RCB team, and this has been blamed on the police and the police force on ensuring that there is safety in numbers, or there is safety in the stadiums and where the crowds are heading. Let's just listen into some of the eyewitnesses on what really transpired that led to the deaths of 7 people in Bengaluru.
The airport to Vidhan Soda to here, I think this is not a controllable crowd. Actually, I apologize for all the people of Karnataka and Bengaluru. We wanted to take a position, but the crowd was very uncontrollable.
All right, so that is the Deputy Chief Minister, D.K. Shivakumar there. He's in fact gone on and publicly apologized, for the complete mismanagement of handling this crowd. And he's also gone on and said that, listen, these are all youngsters and we could not have lathi charged them, that is, bait and charge these youngsters to try and drive the crowd out. Most of them, these are all youngsters, probably they are under the age of 30. Many of them could be under the age of 20 who've turned up. This was a moment of celebration for them. But the fact that not enough measures had been put in place, this is what has resulted in this tragedy that no one expected. And my colleague Siddharth MP is, of course, joining us with more details on this. Siddharth, a complete tragedy that has unfolded in Bengaluru at this point of time. Do we know as to what's the latest that's transpired there?
In fact, Mohammed Saleh, it's very unfortunate what's happened, because this was supposed to be an evening of celebration and jubilation, and what's turned out is the exact opposite. It's a complete tragedy that has unfolded outside the gates of Chinnaswamy Stadium. We know that passions run high. We know that, Karnataka and especially Bangalore, the franchise has been waiting for 18 long years for this particular trophy and for this particular title. But what went wrong absolutely is the fact that government perhaps went overboard in its will to celebrate this victory, because usually at a cricket stadium, when there is a routine match going on, crowd control is fairly well, and we've seen that all stadiums across India have held IPL matches without much of a problem. But when there is an immense VIP movement and there's an immense crowd movement that is expected, I think it's a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen in Bangalore, because usually on any given occasion, we don't see, a sort of open bus kind of journey or a roadshow that is taking place. In this case, of course, there was supposed to be a roadshow and crowds gathered for that. The roadshow did not take place. The open jeep show did not take place. But even then, when such kind of things are announced, the crowds will swell and it could go out of control. The Deputy Chief Minister had pointed out that more than 5,000 cops were deployed on duty. Yet the youth over there and the youngsters who had gathered, the fans who had gathered, were over-enthusiastic. These are the words of the Deputy Chief Minister,
right.
D.K. Shivakumar. What we have to consider is that on a routine match day, this is not what happens. But today, the kind of crowds that swelled are clearly beyond control and bring to the mix the government's will to also celebrate this event in, complete public view. I think that is what threw things completely out of gear and led to this tragedy, Saleh.
Absolutely, indeed. Do continue to stay on with us, Siddharth. And we have senior journalist R.K. Upadhyay, who's still with us from Bengaluru. He's joining us over the phone line. Mr. Upadhyay, this is something that all Bengalurians have been waiting for so long, that the Bengaluru team would win the cup, they would bring the cup back home. The slogan, Isala Cup Namade, this is something that resonates with every Kannada-speaking person out there. And the cup has been brought back home, but what we are witnessing is a tragedy that should have never happened.
Absolutely, Saleh. I was, at a well-known
Yes, Mr. Upadhyay, go ahead.
We seem to have lost Upadhyay there. We'll get back to him. But he did tell us earlier that the death toll could rise. He put the number at 11 at the time we were speaking with him. And the number of injured has been taken to various, or have been taken to various hospitals in Bengaluru, because this, as he says, was a tragedy that was never expected to unfold, because there was a celebration or a celebratory mood just before this tragedy occurred, where 7 people were reported to have died or lost their lives immediately after they thronged into the stadium, the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru, to celebrate with the RCB team, which also landed at the airport, and there were crowds at the airport, but were, you know, also controlled by the state government. And the state government says, or like Saleh said, has apologized for this untimely tragedy, and they say that the celebrations will continue.
You know, the celebrations can't continue from here on. I mean, once you have got about so many people being killed in a stampede, there's no point of having a celebration, because this is a tragedy. And we've got Vrinda Adige, who's a noted activist, who's joining us on the phone line. Ms. Adige, this is a moment of shame for everyone from Bengaluru, is it not? You know, what should have been a moment of celebration is turned into a tragedy. People had been hoping for this moment for so long, but the fact that, you know, there was literally very little that the administration has done to keep things in order has resulted in the loss of these lives. Ms. Adige, your thoughts on what's happened today in Bengaluru?
You're absolutely right. This is a tragedy. My heartfelt condolences to all the parents and the family members. But we must hold the state government accountable. We must hold them responsible. It is less than 16 hours since the match got over. What did they ever think that they could issue these passes? The entire stadium cannot hold more than 30,000-40,000 people if you really cram them. And we know that since this morning, the entire stretch of about 1 kilometer road has had over 2.5 lakh people coming towards Chinnaswamy Stadium. Of course, the police did mention that they do not have the wherewithal to handle all of these crowds or to be able to maintain them. I really do not understand why the state government did something like this. They could have put off the celebrations for another day or two before all the arrangements and the planning could have got done. But there was this, I really don't know. Most often these politicians make these kind of decisions and it is the citizens who are affected. But the most shameful is the morbid celebration continuing even though 8 to 10 people have lost their lives. And that is not only shameless, but it is criminal. Unacceptable that celebrations are going on. I hold the state government accountable. I hold the BCCI accountable. I also hold the RCB accountable, because this cannot be any form of celebration. This is so tragic. The families have lost their loved ones, whom they waved off this morning saying, okay, bye, see you later in the evening, and they get a dead body. And these people continuing the celebrations is absolutely unacceptable.
You know, Ms. Adige, you know the city of Bengaluru so well. You also know as to how the city operates there. You know, the fact that the police say that they had allocated about 5,000 personnel for crowd control for an event where we expect tens of thousands of people to turn up at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. The Chinnaswamy Stadium has a capacity of about 40,000, but it's not just people inside the stadium. You know, the thousands of people who are making a beeline to try and get to the Chinnaswamy Stadium, that would have been a huge task in itself. Why is it that Bengaluru city, that calls itself the Silicon capital, a city that has a vibe of its own, was not able to foresee what was likely to unfold this evening?
Like you mentioned, 5,000 personnel deputed to take care of 2.5 lakh or more people. It's humanly impossible. How can 5,000 look after? What can they do? Already the roads are bad. We know that many of the roads are dug up. So you do not even, the police have not even been able to make any emergency exits or entry for ambulance or any kind of medical emergencies. It's just one road on one side and another road at the back of that stadium. So with the police say that we've made arrangements for with 5,000 police personnel for a crowd of 2.5, anybody can make simple analysis to say absolutely not possible to even keep them in order. Forget telling them to, go to one side or things like that. And again, I'm asking the same question. What was the need for the state government to continue to have this celebration this morning? Because by the time people would have reached home, they've just had about 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And since 4 a.m. this morning, people have been crowding at the ticket counters, hoping that they can get that pass. And mind you, this is a free pass,
Right.
which the BCCI and the RCB have together decided to give in honor of the win that RCB has had. So a free pass is going to be a greater challenge than getting a ticket where you pay your money.
Brinda,
So
let me
if the
ask you
police
this
say
then.
these kind of things, it's absolutely, we cannot accept these things. Are they trying to excuse and absolve themselves of their responsibilities?
Brinda, let me ask you this then, because all this has been said and the state government has apologized. We have the chief minister and the deputy chief minister visiting those who have been injured in the hospitals. Who takes responsibility, and how does Bengaluru ensure that this does not happen again? Brinda.
Absolutely. Apologizing to parents, to families who've lost their loved ones. I don't know, maybe at a political note it's okay to apologize. But is he ever going to assure and say this is something that would never ever happen in Bangalore or anywhere in Karnataka? I don't think that's the confidence or that is something that he can even talk about. I'm still asking, why did he take so long to come out and apologize? Why did he not stop the celebrations the moment he heard the Stampede is outside and people are getting hurt?
Indeed. Ms. Ariga, do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, I'm told that we've also got Mr. Harish Bijur, who's joining us over the phone line from Bengaluru. Mr. Bijur, this must have been a moment of celebration. The people in Bengaluru had waited for so long. The chant, Isala Kap Namade. This is something what we all in Bengaluru had been saying for so many years. But once the cup has come, it's also brought a huge, huge tragedy. Why is it that a city like Bengaluru that takes pride as the Silicon capital of India has failed in what must have been routine crowd management?
Well, firstly, this is a very, very sad incident that has occurred. And what it does is it overshadows and shadows the win of RCB, overshadows and shadows the celebrations that were undertaken at the Vidhan Sauda some time ago. I think this is a very serious matter, and I think, the families of the people who have died will never ever understand what has happened. And my heart goes out to them, and I think the point is not talking about what will happen in the future, but the point is to say that, these things must not happen. It has happened, must never be allowed to happen. And what are the protocols and practices that are going to be put into place to avoid these kinds of things happening? Because there are ways of handling it, and there are methods of handling it. Because the passion of a crowd can go either way. And in this case, the passion of the crowd has gone the wrong way.
You say that this kind of thing should have never happened. That is true. It should have never happened. But the fact that we've got administrators there, one expects that, the Bengaluru administration would have been prepared for huge crowds that would turn up. We've seen celebrations when teams win. There are tens of thousands of people who turn out in the streets. Why is it that we were not able to, in fact, I'm told that we have DK Shivkumar.
Of course, there is some issues. I will come back to you after I visit the hospital.
Sir, no, I can't. Only 5,000 police personnel were deployed, sir. You said the crowd that came in was running into thousands, sir. Was this enough?
It was not thousands, it was lakhs.
Sir,
ನಾನು ಯಾರನ್ನೋ ಸಿ ನೋಡಿ
ಬಿಜೆಪಿ
ನೋಡಿ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕೋ ನಮ್ಮವರೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಐ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಬ್ಲೇಮ್ ಮೈ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡನ್ ದರ್ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್. ಬಟ್ ನೀವೇ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಣ್ಣಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಿ, ಕ್ರೌಡ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀರಿ, ಯಾರು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ನಾವು ಯಾರು ದೊಣ್ಣೆ ಇಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೊಡೆಯೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಏನು ಅರೇಂಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ನ ಓಪನ್ ವೆಹಿಕಲ್ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇತ್ತು. ವಿ ಡಿ ನಾಟ್ ಅಲೋ, ನಂಬರ್ 1. ತಿರ್ಗಾ ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧದಿಂದ ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿತ್ತು, ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವ್ಯಾರು ಭಾಷಣ ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಗೌರವ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ಕೊಟ್ಟು. ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನಾನು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ. ನಮ್ಮ KCA ಸೆಕ್ರೆಟರಿಗೆ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡೆ, ವಿತಿನ್ 10-15 ಮಿನಿಟ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ದಿ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನೇ ಬಂದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡದೆ ಒಂದು ರೌಂಡ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾಡಿ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬಂದಂಥವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅಭಿನಂದನೆ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಮಾಡಿ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಜಲ್ದಿ ನಾವು ಮುಗಿಸಿದ್ವಿ. ಅದನ್ನು ನಾನು ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ, ಭೇಟಿ ಹೋಗ್ತೇನೆ. ಎಸ್.
In many ways, he's effectively washing his hands off of any responsibility of what has happened. He also goes on to state that there was a request that there be a open bus parade that would go from in front of the Vidhana Saudha, but apparently there were security concerns, which is why that bus parade did not happen. But Vidur, you're joining us here. This is a tragedy of proportions that just simply cannot be explained to people who have suffered this evening. No one expected something like this could happen. But the fact that it has happened, we need to only hang our heads in shame. It's just inconceivable that a tragedy of this manner, what should have been routine crowd control, one expects crowds of this scale will turn up after every major, victory, when their team goes out and performs and brings home the glory, brings home the cup. But the fact that this is what has unfolded in Bengaluru, it's utter complete shame that there was not enough adequate preparation to deal with the crowd that would turn up for a celebration.
Well, Saleh, and the fact is that we're still getting to grips with the magnitude of the tragedy that has happened today. It's a terrible, terrible day for the city of Bengaluru. And what's, unfathomable is, whatever the Deputy Chief Minister said of Karnataka, the thing is that there is such lack of management outside the stadium and inside the stadium as well. Now, I just saw visuals of Virat Kohli and the entire team inside the stadium going about their celebrations as if nothing had happened. Obviously, they have not been informed about the tragedy that has taken place, because the victory celebrations inside the stadium have gone on as scheduled. So obviously there is no communication and there is no statement. So far no statement has come from the franchise, that is RCB, and no statement has come from the likes of Virat Kohli and the players, because they have probably not been informed about the incident. And as we saw recently inside the stadium, it was business as usual.
Chinnaswamy Stadium, it's bang in the middle of Bengaluru city. It has a capacity of about 40,000 people, so one assumes that it was filled to capacity. But the real problem is crowd management for people who are still turning up at the gates of the stadium. The fact that the Deputy Chief Minister now comes and says that, listen, there were not tens of thousands, but probably lakhs of people who were turning up. It is the responsibility of the police, of the administration of the city, to look at unusual movement of crowds. If there are roads that are leading up towards the Chinnaswamy Stadium, one can predict what is going to happen in a matter of minutes. The fact that Bengaluru, which is a smart city, which has got CCTV cameras all over, which monitors the way the traffic moves, which monitors the way the traffic moves every minute, and which also has the data of the number of people who are getting onto metro trains and getting down from the metro trains, the routes that are being taken by them. The fact that they were not able to predict and not able to control a situation like this is something that smacks of complete indifference on the part of, the city administration there, that has completely failed
as you
in
can see
keeping
the
people
visuals
safe.
on your screen. There are smashed cars, and information is coming in that the injured are being treated at the Boring Hospital and the Videhi Super Speciality Hospital at the Vittal Malia Road. Obviously, the number of injured are expected had to increase at this point. And the fact is, Saleh, of course, victory parades, we have seen them. We just saw them in India a few months back in Mumbai when India were crowned T20 world champions. And back then, of course, there were lakhs of people that came. But the management, you have to say at that point, there was no untoward incident that happened. But here, obviously, this is not unique. Let's tell
this is not unique.
This is not unique. Victory parades take place across the world, of course, but this kind of tragedy reeks of irresponsibility and mismanagement by the authorities.
It really is complete mismanagement. And we've got Mr. R.K. Upadhyay, senior journalist, who's still with us from Bengaluru. Mr. Upadhyay, we just heard from the Deputy Chief Minister, D.K. Shivkumar, where he comes out and says that he does not want to fault his police force. He says that they did the best that they could. 5,000 people were deployed for a celebration where one expected there would be tens of thousands of people. But D.K. Shivkumar now says there were lakhs of people who had turned up, which resulted in this tragedy. How is it that the city administration, the state administration is now, it appears, trying to wash its hands of its responsibility of keeping people safe?
Well, I mean, if the Deputy CM says the police did their best, and I think their work has been seen as the best. I can imagine if they were not to do even this. So, I mean, the point is that Bangalore city has grown so much, and we should look ahead with, you just can't have this kind of thing.
The person you are speaking with.
Right, we seem to have lost the line there with Mr. R.K. Upadhyay. Whether this is something that's going to be debated about for many, many years to come. The fact is, Bengaluru, yes, it is a crowded city, but the fact is, Chinnaswamy Stadium, because of its location, is something that is accessible from literally every corner of the city. And if the Bengaluru administration, the city administration there turns around and says that they simply could not foresee the number of people who are likely to turn up, it speaks completely poor of their ability to manage crowds such as this. As you mentioned, we witnessed the celebration that happened after India won the T20 World Cup in Mumbai. There were thousands, tens of thousands, probably lakhs of people who turned up. That celebration happened without a hitch. The fact that the match was won yesterday night, if the city administration needed more time to come up with the safety and security arrangements, they should have told the RCB that, listen, we need more time. Do your celebrations, don't do it today, do it on the weekend, do it on Saturday evening. Let's put in our infrastructure in place. Let's ensure that there will be adequate crowd management. People should have been geared up that, listen, this is the route that you need to take, and this is where the celebrations can begin. The fact that D.K. Shivkumar now turns around and says that, listen, we tried to do the best that we could. We even cancelled that open bus parade. It completely smacks of an indifference where the city administration, the state administration, it appears, was just not interested in foreseeing as to how big an event this was likely to be.
Well, absolutely. And Saleh, you mentioned that the police had time to prepare for this for one day. But the fact of the matter is, we have known for about a week or so that there is a possibility of Bengaluru winning the trophy. Remember, they reached the playoffs about a week ago. So there is that possibility. So it's not just one day. They actually had more time to prepare for this parade or this felicitation ceremony at the Chinnaswamy. We are joined by our correspondent Siddharth MP. Siddharth, the scenes that we're seeing right now from Bengaluru, fans are still in and around the stadium from the visuals that we're seeing. What is the latest that you can tell us?
Indeed, what we're given to understand is, it's a type of contrast that we're seeing, and two extreme contrasts. It's actually ghastly to describe, because inside the stadium, the celebration is underway, the felicitation is underway, and there are so many people that are part of that celebration. And outside, it's, pain and despair and sorrow. So it's a complete contrast inside and outside the stadium. So there are so many people who are not going to, sleep properly tonight. There are so many families who are going to be mourning tonight. But inside the stadium, there's celebration going on. There's top government officials, the Deputy Chief Minister himself, felicitating the entire team. So despite the tragedy that has unfolded outside, there is mounting criticism that inside, at this time also, is it necessary to continue this celebration? Because these people gathered for you, these people gathered for the love of the sport, for the love of that particular city and franchise. And now, you're continuing these celebrations even when there are so many people perhaps already lying in the morgue, and in some cases, unfortunately, who are battling for their lives in different hospitals in Bengaluru. So that is the mounting criticism right now. So, of course, there's the one political side of it that the opposition parties criticizing the government over this. But this is also a tragedy that has happened multiple times across cities in India, across states, and different governments have been in power. But such events are quite common. Last year, we saw this in Chennai when the air show took place. Over 1 million people had gathered, but even there were casualties. This was, of course, an event, largely organized by the state government. The air show, of course, was the Air Force's responsibility. But everything that unfolded on the ground was clearly the state government's responsibility. Even in movie premieres where an actor took part, we've seen an example where there was a tragic life loss incident. So this is, a recurring pattern that we are seeing across Indian cities, irrespective of which government is in power. It's also a larger issue that crowd management is something that India is perhaps not efficient in dealing with, irrespective of which government is in power, because this is certainly a very painful issue. No amount of compensation can sort of compensate for the lives that are lost in such incidents. These are young people, these are fans, energetic people, perhaps students who are out there to celebrate. But what's happening at the end of the day is not many of them will get back home. So that's the grim reality that we have to deal with, contend with, and also ask questions of ourselves as people of this country that, when such celebrations happen, should people also really venture out? Because of course you love your teams, of course you love the players, you have a passion for a sport, but is it also worth the risk going out in such scenarios? Because this is not the first time.
See, the world over, Siddharth, let me interrupt you there. The world over, the fact is, whenever their teams win, there are celebrations that happen. It's not something that's unique to India. It happens world over. But a tragedy of this scale, and also the complete indifference of the city administration to turn up and say that, listen, we did our best, we just could not manage the crowds. It's just not an acceptable argument. The fact is, once sporting teams win, there are these massive open bus celebrations that are witnessed in different places across the world. There are footballing tournaments that are held in Europe, these Premier League teams who go and they celebrate every single year. This is not an unusual thing. What it has shown, perhaps the incident that has unfolded today, what it has shown is that Indian cities, especially Bengaluru, was just not ready for this. And the people will turn up. Most of these are youngsters. Look at the faces of those youngsters, and what you're looking at are these people who are probably less than the age of 25, most of them, who had waited for their team to win, and this is what has happened. Let's listen into what some of the local eyewitnesses there had to say as to what unfolded on the roads in Bengaluru today.
We actually came here in the afternoon, and it's been really crowded. We do have tickets, but then since there was a lot of stampedes and all that happening, they didn't let us go inside. And now we're not even inside and not even able to go back. So we're just stuck.
All right, so this is what one of those youngsters there said, that she had been queuing up since afternoon. For people who are familiar with this area, this is one of those gates, where people were trying to get in. But look at the crowd that have been present just outside this gate. The fact that a lot of these people would have come from Bengaluru, from areas adjoining Bengaluru, a lot of these towns and villages, it is just mind-boggling that the government is now turning around and saying that they simply could not foresee what was happening. Because remember, right bang opposite your Chinnaswamy Stadium, you also have this open space, which is Cubbon Park. I'm pretty sure a lot of the people would have been there. A lot of them would have been trying to get inside. Some of them probably would have been trying to jump over the compound, as we saw in those images. But the fact is, if the administration in Bengaluru had taken this seriously, when there was a demand by the RCB for an open bus parade that would go from in front of the Vidhan Sauda, all of this adds to the image of the city of Bengaluru. For DK Shivkumar to now turn around and say, listen, there was a request that was made for this, we did not allow for that because we had some security concerns. It's almost prophetic. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, and it is mind-boggling that a city that expects to call itself a world-class city, unfortunately this evening, what we are witnessing is a complete tragedy where many of these youngsters, the death toll is varies. It's 8 in some places. In some places, there are reports that 11 people have died. There are dozens of youngsters who've sustained serious injuries in this stampede who are not going home tonight. Many of them admitted in the local hospitals there. The Boring Hospital, Vaidehi Hospital is another one where they've been told. It's so unfortunate.
Yeah, you know, Sali, and another point I'd like to make is that the authorities had said that only fans who had the pass to enter the stadium will be allowed. And right now, we just heard someone who said
looking
that
at these screens. Now look at this.
And they were not.
Tell me this. This is from in front of the stadium. This is the huge road that is there in front of the stadium.
Yeah.
It is not people who are inside of the stadium who are getting lathi charged in this manner.
Absolutely.
It is.
And to expect only those fans with tickets to turn up for an event like this, which obviously every Bengaluru fan, every RCB fan wants to, have a piece of the action, wants to catch a glimpse of their beloved team. So obviously, we right now don't have the confirmation on the number of tickets that were sold for this event, but obviously a lot more people turned up, and to expect only those people with tickets to turn up for a celebration event like this is naive, to say the least, when it comes to the authorities.
It smacks of indifference. It's not just naive, it's like expecting that people will come. Yes, a few thousand will come, they'll gather and they'll just go home. But that's not what happens when you have events of this magnitude. The fact that DK Shivkumar turns around and says that we had deployed about 5,000 people for the safety and security of Bengaluru city for the night on the night of New Year's Eve. In 2024, there were more than 10,000 police personnel who had been deployed. The fact that this was going to be a massive celebration, this was going to be a celebration that has not been witnessed in Bengaluru in many, many years. For DK Shivkumar to turn up and say that, listen, we did our best, this is all that we could do, just does not cut it. These are incidents which speak about how well a city is prepared, and it damages the image of Bengaluru.
Absolutely. And also, I'd like to make this point that the fact that Siddharth MP mentioned this, the fact that the ceremony took place, the celebration ceremony inside the stadium went on as planned. Obviously, the players and the team management, remember, still no statement has come from the franchise, that is Royal Challengers Bengaluru, about the incident, about the Stampede-like situation that has occurred. So, Siddharth, the scenes still, it's baffling really to think about it that RCB, the franchise, decided to go ahead with the celebration inside the stadium when obviously there have been confirmed reports of multiple people who have been killed.
Indeed, criticism is mounting right now that it is insensitive of the team management to have continued with all the events and celebrations inside the stadium, and also the presence of the Deputy Chief Minister at that particular event is being pointed out as a major indication of the kind of insensitivity that is on blatant display, because primarily it is all known to everybody that such a tragedy has unfolded, and even after that, does this have to continue? Clearly, this is a complete contrast to the victory that was, there barely 24 hours ago, and right now we're having tragedy and, mourning and so on. So this is a really unfortunate situation that's unfolding, and, questions are being raised about the way this entire thing has been conducted, because looking at the proportion, there are at least 2.5 to 3 lakh people, 200,000 to almost 300,000 people that were expected along Bengaluru's roads. And that's also the broad estimate of the number of people that gathered today. And the number of police personnel deployed for this kind of crowd is just about 5,000. So this shows a huge disproportionality in the way things have been handled. And certainly this is a lapse. There are also former police officials and former director generals of police pointing out that clearly this is a lapse on the part of the authorities, because the government was at the forefront of celebrating this. See, had the government wanted to felicitate the team, they could have done so in private. They could have done so in a manner that it does not affect anybody in public domain. They could have done this in a sort of private ceremony. They could have done this within closed confines. There was no need to announce of something like a roadshow or an open jeep rally along the roads and then going to the stadium. There was no need to announce this, because it is when the government is also whipping this up that naturally there's going to be additional frenzy coming in from the fan fraternity, and that's what has led to this. Had the government said that, okay, from our side we're going to just felicitate the players and the winning team, then that's going to be a private ceremony involving the government and the said cricket team. But if you involve the public like this and make a grand spectacle out of it without making arrangements, then what happens is a recipe for disaster. And unfortunately, that's what we're having to contend with right now. We would have obviously hoped for things to have gone completely differently, but the reality on the ground is completely different. Outside, you're having people struggling for their lives and people battling for their lives in hospitals, people in morgues already, and inside the stadium the celebration is going on, indifferent to what's happening just barely outside, a couple of 100 meters outside the stadium. So this is a stark contrast that's available, and this is what is sort of jarring and painful to even describe.
It is a very painful moment indeed, Siddharth. You know, the fact whether that DK Shivkumar personally received the RCB squad at the HAL airport early in the day. He gave the team members bouquets and flags to the players, including Virat Kohli, and he of course posed there with the players for a photo op. And then for a tragedy of this scale to unfold, it just is so saddening of what has in fact happened. It is unbelievable. The scale of the tragedy, the fact that Bengaluru city, you know, a city that calls itself as a world-class city, a global hub, it's just mind-boggling that something such as this has happened. And we've got Mr. Ashwini Nachpa who's joining us over the phone line. You know, Ashwini, this is so disturbing when you look at what has happened there, Ms. Nachpa. In your assessment, what do you think has actually gone wrong, and why is it that Bengaluru is looking at a moment which should have been a moment of celebration that's now turned into a tragedy?
The visuals, I've been watching television for the last half an hour and I've just switched it off because it is absolute tragedy that Bangalore faces. And I think the unpreparedness of the government and all concerned to actually manage this large number of expected crowd, because anywhere in the world the fans are crazy and to control them takes enormous amount of effort. It cannot be just done in a day's time. There needs to be a lot of preparation, planning that goes behind it, because this is bound to happen. And I think there was just no preparation in place, and that's why you see the tragedy in such a large number. Right now somebody is saying 9 people have died. You know, it's a disaster waiting to happen, as it is. Bangalore faces enormous issues with traffic management, with bad infrastructure, roads, and when something like this happens in a large crowd, I think we failed in the management.
And also, Ms. Nachpa, considering how big an event this was going to be, everyone expected, yes, there will be celebrations, but the fact that there were simply no preparations in the city of Bengaluru, India's Silicon capital, a city that takes pride in calling itself as this smart city, as a city which is so imbued with civic sense. But why is it that the city administration has fallen so woefully short this time round?
I don't think any citizen feels proud of Bangalore city right now. We've been Bangaloreans. The infrastructure is pathetic, so I don't think you will find many takers to say that this is the Silicon Valley and, it has the best infrastructure. Absolutely no. And we have failed in the last 10, 12 years. Nobody is worried about creating the best facility, best infrastructure. It's actually a distressful, stay in Bangalore city right now.
It is. The images that are coming from Bengaluru, this is indeed very, very distressing. This is, I have reported in Bengaluru for so many years, but the fact that this is a tragedy and the scale of the tragedy and the fact that this could have been prevented if the city administration had been more on their toes is what is so heartbreaking. A day of celebration has turned into a day of tragedy, something that many families who have ended up losing their loved ones will not be able to come to grips with for many, many years to come. And most of those people that you're seeing on the screens there, these are all youngsters, probably less than the age of 25. And the fact that the administration failed in putting in place enough security arrangements for crowd control is what has resulted in these unfortunate scenes. Ms. Nachpa, I want to get a last word in from you. The fact that, Bengaluru also has such a vibrant sporting culture. This is something that a lot is talked about as to how Bengaluru, yes, there are issues that we have with our infrastructure, with our civic infrastructure, but it has a vibe and a culture of its own. How is it that we completely failed this evening?
It has a vibrant sporting culture, whether it is the football matches that happen or whether it is the Kabaddi League or the badminton league. It's all managed, it's all planned, given the kind of infrastructure that exists in Bangalore City. And I think taking all that into consideration, you should prepare and plan accordingly. The kind of people that you are expecting, what are the kind of restrictions that you are going to have, where the restrictions are. I mean, you can't just let loose. And I think it's a learning for every fan. Please don't go overboard.
Right.
Because there is somebody waiting for you at home. Don't get carried away. You need to have your head on your shoulder. Yes, I'm also a fan. But you need to draw a line somewhere and take responsibility for your own actions somewhere.
That is true indeed, but the fact is these are youngsters, a lot of them, 18 years ago when the IPL franchisee started, there's been this slogan, Isala Cup Namade. This is what every Bengalurian, every Kannadiga speaking person says, Isala Cup Namde. And Isala Cup Bande de, but this is the tragedy that has unfolded. Is there a lesson that probably Bengaluru City needs to take out of this? Because this is not going to be the last time that there will be an attempt at a celebration when the team comes back home with a cup.
Waited for 18 years to win this. It speaks of volumes of the team's resilience and, never giving up attitude. And that celebration turns into something like this. Does it have to be a tragedy of this scale for us to learn a lesson, for governments to learn a lesson, is the question that we all need to ask.
Indeed, Ms. Nachappa, thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is a moment that no one expected. This is not how this evening should have happened. What should have been a moment of celebration is a moment of tragedy in Bengaluru City. Whether, the scenes that we were looking at, the fact that if the city administration had been more aware. Right. So we have Mr. Bhaskar Rao, who's a former commissioner. He's joining us over the phone line. Mr. Rao, the scenes that we are witnessing in Bengaluru City at this moment, I want to ask you this because you're a former commissioner there. Could this have been avoided? What could have Bengaluru done differently?
Could you please repeat? I lost you in the last part.
Right. The question that I'm asking, Mr. Rao, is, could this have been avoided? What could have Bengaluru done differently?
This was an avoidable tragedy. The functions, the celebrations of frenzy started yesterday at 11:45. And whole night celebrations have been going on. The government should not have been in such a great hurry to conduct a civic reception and a program of this kind. The police were already exhausted because the whole night the police have not slept in Bangalore City. Right. And without applying their mind, they have conducted. What was a great hurry? Is anybody going to go away or run away that they wanted to do it? They could have done it after 2 days. The commissioner of police or the intelligence chief or the home minister could have told the chief minister not to be in such a great hurry to conduct this program. Now, the whole celebratory mood has become into a big, huge gloom of tragedy now.
That is indeed true. Mr. Rao, I also want you to weigh in on when it's being said that about 5,000 police personnel were deployed for security, but considering the crowd of people who are converging towards the Chinnaswamy Stadium, could this not have been predicted that there is going to be a huge crush of people, and therefore there should have been measures that are put in place to try and not allow so many people to congregate in this one space?
See, you cannot prevent people from congregating because you have already announced that you are going to conduct a civic reception and all the players are going to be present in blood and flesh. And everybody is curious to see them, talk to them, and the frenzy is very, very high. So it is too premature. If you deploy 5,000 or 10,000 policemen, that is not the answer. You need to have proper barricades, proper check controls, rope barricades, and access control, etc., then only you can conduct such kind of a thing. By merely putting 5,000 to 6,000 police persons without any assigned jobs, they will only create more amount of problems. So this whole thing was absolutely premature, and now somebody has to be blamed. So let us blame the police, which is absolutely unfair, because this is not the way to conduct yourself, to be in a great hurry to carry out a civic reception in less than 24 hours. These things can wait, and you should have taken the writing on the wall when celebrations were going on till 7:30, 8 in the morning, starting at 11:45. People are still in a state of extreme excitement, and they're not been able to come down because of the reason that for 18 years the cup did not come to us over there. So, absolutely failure of anticipation.
Thank you, ex-Police Commissioner Rao from Bengaluru joining us. We now go across to Susan Teherani for WION live broadcast from New York.
Hello everyone and welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm your host Susan Teherani. The headlines. Bengaluru's IPL title celebrations turned into tragedy. At least 7 dead after a stampede broke out near the Chinnaswamy Stadium. U.S. President Donald Trump's Ukraine envoy says risk of escalation after Ukraine's strike on Russia airfields was going way up, warns of the dangers of attacking an opponent's national survival system, in this case, the nuclear triad. The U.S. ambassador to NATO says the bloc must push to ramp up defenses, must outstrip Russia's rearmament drive as Moscow is already gearing up for its next move beyond Ukraine. Kremlin says dates for the third round of peace talks with Ukraine will be decided when the two sides are ready. Round 2 on Monday remained inconclusive with reports of big differences between Moscow and Kyiv. Beijing terms comments by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tiananmen Square an attack on China and a malicious interference in its internal affairs. Rubio had said the world would never forget the 1989 crackdown. A decline in Tesla's China-made electric vehicle sales extends to an 8 months in May. Automakers' sales woes are compounded by brutal price wars in the world's largest auto market. We are continuing to track the tragedy that struck Royal Challengers Bengaluru IPL title celebrations. At least 7 people have died and many were left injured after a stampede-like situation occurred outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Scores of Royal Challengers Bengaluru fans gathered outside RCB's home stadium to celebrate their team's maiden IPL title. Roads in and around the stadium were choked, and traffic police had earlier canceled the team's victory parade, predicting traffic congestions and to avoid any mishap. But the situation quickly got out of hand. and what was feared actually happened. The overwhelming crowd led to a stampede-like situation at multiple entry points, forcing police to intervene with a lathi charge to control the surging masses.
The airport to Vidhan Soda to the air. I think this is not a controllable crowd. Actually, I apologize for all the people of Karnataka and Bengaluru. We wanted to take a headway position, but the crowd was very uncontrollable.
The FBI exposed what experts call a potential act of agro-terrorism. Chinese nationals caught smuggling a highly toxic fungus into the United States. This isn't just dangerous, it could have crippled America's food supplies, infected the soil, and triggered a full-scale agricultural crisis. The FBI has arrested Chinese nationals Yun Xinjian for smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the United States. Yun Xinjian and Junyang Liu have been charged with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the U.S., making false statements, and visa fraud by the FBI. According to the FBI's complaint, an examination of electronic communications between the two indicates that the duo discussed shipping biological materials and research being done in the University of Michigan laboratory prior to Junyang Liu's arrival here in the United States. Detailing the nature of the pathogens, the U.S. Department of Justice says the biological pathogen causes head blight in some crops and is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses globally each year. The fungus also causes vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in humans and livestock alike. Now, this pathogen is a major fungal pathogen with serious implications in agriculture, food safety, and economics. The fungal pathogen has been termed as a potential agent of agroterrorism. Agroterrorism falls under bioterrorism and targets the agricultural sector to destabilize food systems, cause economic devastation, and undermine public confidence in government and create widespread panic. Let's break down the potential impact of this fungal pathogen. It causes head bites in cereals, especially wheat, barley, and corn, as a result of which grain quality is compromised, making it unsuitable for food or feed markets. Contaminated grains can cause nausea, vomiting, and also suffering in humans and livestock, notably the reproductive system. The economic consequences are huge. Other than direct losses, international grain trade may be affected due to stringent import regulations. Now, calling the incident a direct threat to national security, FBI Director Kash Patel said on X that the evidence indicates charges Chinese nationals, both of them linked to the Chinese Communist Party, and has received funding from the Chinese government for similar work on the pathogen in China as well. Now, Kash Patel further accused the Chinese Communist Party of deploying operatives and researchers to infiltrate U.S. institutions and target the country's food supply, which could have grave consequences. According to the FBI's complaint, Yun Xinjian has been identified as having links to the Chinese Communist Party. Junyang Liu is currently employed by a university in China and is involved in biological research. The FBI states that Junyang Liu has been conducting research specifically on biological pathogens.